I've been waiting to chat with you for so long, bro. Like, I mean, when we first met, I always said, like, damn it, I'm going to get James. We got to have a great conversation and talk. But what you've just done and what you've started posting and what you chatted with me about at Creative South a bit was worth getting you on here and chatting about it. And first, I just want to say, what's up? How you doing, bud? Good to see you. Right?
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
What's up? I'm here. Yeah, I can talk to you all day, pal. So whenever we can do round 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm here for it. But it's an honor to be here to chat. It was great. We've connected a few times at different events, and always never long enough to spend time with each other. So I'm excited to dive into the weeds a little bit. I don't know what weeds we're going to dive into.
We even do a. I do.
Yeah,
we got so much good stuff to chat about, and again, maybe we even make a progress report a year down the road or whatever on what you're going to be doing and what we're going to be talking about today. Tell everybody a little bit about what's the overview of this new direction that you, James Martin, Made by James, is taking. Give us that overview, and then we'll break it down.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's funny enough, even my mum and dad call me Made by James now, so I'm not too sure. I'm not even too sure what my name is now. I
get it from all my students. They're like, it's Made by James.
Yeah, nobody. It's just as well because there's a famous chef called James Martin. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, my brother is called Chris Martin, and that's Coldplay, so we're both fucked.
Oh my God, you guys are hilarious.
So, I suppose the best thing to do is to kind of give a little bit of context. I'll do a little bit of a background. So for the last 20 years, I've been, up until 2024, I've been very much focused on working in the design industry. For the first 3 or 4 years of that, I was working as a junior designer at an agency. I then started my own agency, Baby Giant Design Co., and then have very recently become creative partner in Lincoln Design Co., which was my dream. So if anybody out there is thinking your dreams do not happen, like for the last decade, I've been trying to make that dream happen, and it has happened. So it fucking happens, all right? The main reason why I started to partner with Dan and the team at Lincoln Design Co. was because I needed to alleviate the pressures of how much client work I was doing, because I had this audacious goal for the next 20 years of challenging myself within the education space, we'll call it. Made by James is now, I always say it's only a recent thing, so I can't have always said it. But like what I say now, what I say is like, it's, for years and years and years and years would be a lie. It's gone from an accidental personal brand to a very intentional revolution. So I've been very blessed with the things I've done in the industry. I've been very lucky enough to author a book. I've managed to, create a community online. I've worked with some of the biggest clients in the world and some of the smallest. And do you know what? I prefer the smallest. Do you know what I mean? All this dream client bullshit. My dream client is the one that loves me. And they're usually about this big, never this big. Do you know what I mean?
Where did that come from, right? We all thought bigger the better.
Yeah, I think it's another trap that we've all fallen into, isn't it? Because I think what it does is I think it's the mentality behind that of, one day my clients will get better, when the best client that you have is the client that you have now, the client that's paying you. And yes, it might not be going the way you expect it to, or it might not be going as smooth as you think, or it might not be this, or it might not be that. But like, the client, your best client is the one you have right now, I promise you, however difficult it may be. So essentially, like as I said, through those 20 years being kind of, grew up in a world without social media, now very much in a world that's with it. I see the pros and the cons. I see what's happening. I am one of these people who loves his industry. Creativity saved my life. Do you know what I mean? Like it really did. Anybody who's seen me talk on stage or read my book will understand the story. So I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it truly did save my life. And the people I've met, like yourself, Nick, and everybody else, like it means so much to me. And that is the reason why I feel like I have a responsibility. Like, I realize that maybe the reason that I've been growing the audience is for this moment, which is to protect the
Beautiful.
design industry, protect the talented designers in the industry, to offer maybe like less of a quick fix AI hack, 10K month after 3 months in the industry hack kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all get rich quick. Like, don't really, work with clients, work against them, make as much money as possible, move on to the next one. Do you know what I mean? And it's become quite tribal. And this is a very generalized, overly generalized for the sake of
Oh
drama. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? I'm a
but
brand
we all
designer,
see
I'm a
it.
storyteller.
We
Do you know what I mean?
we all see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, for me, it's just wanting to offer a safer space online that focuses on, you know, building design leaders. Like, when I grew up in the industry, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew if I stayed in it long enough, things would happen. Like, my prices would probably increase. I'd probably make a little bit more money. I'd probably do better work. It was never given, but just kept showing up, kept showing up, kept showing up. And, like, 10 years ago, no fucker knew who I was. Do you know what I mean? To be fair, still today, there's a load of fuckers who don't know who I am. So it's not a problem. But my point is like, I just kept on going. Like, I was showing up when nobody was even watching. And I think there's so much focus on content creation and showing your face. And, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell people these things aren't important, but it seems to be at the detriment of people's creativity and the detriment of their craft. And I worry that with too much focus on it, like, I see a creative world that's becoming less creative. I see a creative world that is becoming less resilient. I see a creative world that struggles with confidence. Like, I mean, we've all, as creative people, all have always had self doubt, but you know, we carry on because it's what we love to do. So yeah, I mean, I could just talk. I know you're here, so I always forget people are here when I'm talking. So what else do you want to talk about? Because I could just talk forever. So
I really agree with you on where technology, social media, this get rich quick thing. I'm like, gosh, you nailed it with that. It was this idea that, like, and I get caught up with it, and I've been doing it for over 20 years as well. And you see something and it makes you think, oh, I have to be more like that, or whatever it might be. And I just hate that there's that kind of demand on us that's so false and so not necessary. And you're right, it's kind of like the client thing, where you are with that, and the fearfulness of that, the lack of confidence, the lack of the self-doubt. I see it as a design teacher as well. And when I first saw you drop kind of your goal of what you wanted to do here, I was like, wow, this is perfect, because I try to reinvent it every semester, and it's still hard, right? It's still hard to get everybody in that zone and ready, because I'm sure where you are as well and where I am, the job market for a young kid getting out of school is absolutely horrible right now. There's just very little. And I wonder if it's because the sea of the talent looks very similar and looks very same, who's really standing out at a certain point in that interview and with that portfolio. And a lot of the stuff I think you're implementing can be the game changer to a young kid that doesn't have 4 or 5 years behind them. Right? Like, wouldn't that be like the perfect scenario to give them that power?
yeah, I mean, I think I also think it's not just the design industry right now. I think globally we're in a little bit of fuckery, aren't we? There's a lot of shit going on. Do you know what I mean? I think what that generally does is it does put people on the back foot. Especially with, like, there's a presidential campaign in the US. We've just had one over here. The guards have changed. Like, budgets change. Like, people are always a little bit on the back foot. We've just recovering from COVID, recession. So I think everybody's a little bit like, oh, twitchy, but we will get through that. But like, with reference to your point, I think it is like creativity. like never used to really be the competition that it used to be. You know, it used to be like you would
Yeah.
very much draw by yourself, or you draw in your sketchbook. You know, not all of this is mine, but some of it's mine. Do you know what I mean? But you would do it for you, and you wouldn't necessarily share it, but you would always, like, yes, you'd get inspired by other artists, you get inspired by other designers, and you'd create something unique out of that inspiration. Now, this kind of the way it's going now, it's very different. Where people inspiration is now blatant copying. Do you know what I mean? You can't just like
Hmm.
copy exactly what's going on and call it "I'm inspired by XYZ" or "I was inspired by this," and it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same, but all you've done is you've made it. So it's exactly the same. That goes for reels, that goes for the content. So what is actually happening is like critical thinking, problem solving, you know, all of these essential tools that like employees, yeah, or employers, sorry, are looking for. They are not seeing in a portfolio because like, can you talk me through this piece? No. Can you, you know, what inspired this? I saw it on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, like overly generalizing here, but my point is that like I've
Hmm.
always tried to instill in anybody who I've spoken to is like people don't really care about a logo. You know, people don't really like care about a website in a portfolio. What they care about is they care about how you got to that kind of finish point. So telling that story of
Yeah.
its kind of inception and its the concept building, the ideas, the thinking, because anybody, you know, you if somebody came to me if I was employing anybody and I'm not, but if I was, I know I can teach them to use Adobe Illustrator. I know I can teach them all those hard skills, but I need to know if I can get on with them. I need to be able to talk to them. I need to be able to see if they can take feedback. And I also want to know if they can think differently because that is the thing. That's the money, is how they think, how they critically break down ideas, how they come up with solutions, how they problem solve. Now, again, I get to speak to a lot of designers, and the things that they need are the things that they can't do, unfortunately, a lot of the time. Very poor communication skills, um, often won't even turn on a camera to speak to anybody. You know, really struggle with creative confidence and really understanding the like not necessarily the principles of design, but just the general idea of like creative thinking. Like because there's no room for creative thinking now because people are just like, well, if I just pull a face like made by James, or I do this particular post, or I do this, that's going to grow me an audience, and but then I can get some third party company that I'm not going to name to give me some money, and maybe I won't need clients. Do you know what I mean? Like win win win.
Yeah.
Like that's that. The thing is, like this is the other option now, isn't it? It's like I would say that there's probably 75 to 80% of the people who are in the industry right now will not be in it in 2 years' time. It just won't happen because they're not in it for the right reasons, or they're going to get overwhelmed by the amount of time that they're potentially wasting. And like, it's funny, like this whole like when I think about like the design education space or the things that I would like to teach people more, it's the unpredictable stuff. Do you know what I mean? So this is what like
I was
we
just gonna
intend
say.
to do,
I
which
was
is
just gonna
like
bring that up. That was my
yeah,
favorite
like
thing you said.
yeah, bringing the client in. Like it's very easy to tell people how to price this way, or do this, or build this portfolio, or do this particular process, and you'll be fine. The problem is when you go out into the real world, and the client says certain things like your one size fits all approach doesn't not yours, but the one size fits all approach doesn't necessarily work within the real world. And that's what happens is when people are taking these kind of templates and formulas, executing them in the real world, they might work 3 times out of 10, but 7 times out of 10 they don't, and then they break down, and then all the friction areas start to really come apparent, and then anxiety, self confidence, like drop. Do you know what I mean? And then to the point where people start to get burned out, they start to, lose love for creativity. And obviously, when they see some dude
Yeah.
on the internet having 20K months, which he's probably not, and standing in front of a car that's not even his, they go, "Oh my god, it's working for them, but it's not working for me." And that's the problem, is because it's not it's not their talent, it's not their ability that is the problem. It's the way they're being taught that's the problem. So this idea of actually
Yeah.
bringing in this unpredictable element and trying to create people who are a little bit more resilient, because like when we talk about, let's talk about, I mean, I'm going to go off on one here, do you know what I mean now? So let's talk
Go.
about like clients. Yeah, designers need clients and clients need designers. Yet there is an internet full of designers who are actively involved in this tribal mentality of taking the piss out of the clients and openly slating them and all this kind of stuff. And some designers I've spoken to don't even have clients and they're openly dissing clients, but they want work. Do you know what I mean? For me, it just doesn't make any sense. And the funny thing is, like, if you have a client and you create a wonderful experience, you bring them into the fold, you cater your process around them and their needs and their deliverables, you like send them gifts. You do, like, I used to send sketches to certain clients like halfway through the process and stuff like that. Not every client, but some clients. Do you know what I mean? Because like what you're trying to do is you're trying to create these memorable experiences. Because when you create these memorable experiences, your clients will not only come back, but what they will also do is they'll tell all their friends who also have businesses to go and speak to this guy. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Organically.
organically, referrals, word of mouth, whichever way we look at it. Now, yes, we still need to be promoting ourselves, creating content. But if you are somebody who doesn't enjoy creating the content, who doesn't get anything out or doesn't get energized by doing that, or also doesn't want to do that, you don't have to. All you have to do is look after your clients and wow your clients, and you will have all the work that you will ever need. Now, yes, I understand. Well, how do I get clients? How do I do this? And now, look, we all started at zero. Do you know what I mean? We all, like, for the
Sure.
first fucking, you know, 5 years of my life, I didn't make basically any money. Do you know what I mean? In design, I was making 250 quid, a week, which isn't, it's not bad, but it's not great as a designer. £1,000 a month. Do you know what I mean? Like 12 grand a year. Like,
Yeah.
I did it. I was working
Yeah.
hard and I was still doing it and I was getting it done, but that's what I started at. Like I used to do logos for like $200 when I was doing freelance stuff, and like, sorry, I always go between like pounds and dollars because I work so often in the US
That's
and the
okay.
UK, so I fucking go
We
all
all
over
have
the place.
currency converters on our phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my point is like it takes
See.
time. Like you're like this dream client, this kind of, you need X amount of clients to do this, to do that. It's not easy. Do you know what I mean? If it was easy, everybody would do it. And I think this is the problem as well. It's kind of it's been so dumbed down by like design influencers and some online educators and all the rest of it that it is easy, and all you've got to do is just do this and you'll be
Yeah.
fine. And that's the issue
Yeah.
for me, because
It's almost they're afraid to say it's hard work. It's almost like the dangling carrot is look how easy it is. And you're right. That's a very kind of to hang your hat on just that is not it's not going to create a good career, a good self-esteem, anything, because you're not really learning much.
no. And I think the biggest problem is that a lot of these people don't have as many clients as they put on. They're also, I would
Thank you for
also,
saying that.
I would also say that got to be very careful what I say here. But I would also suggest that some of the stuff that is being taught, if you actually brought a client into the room, they wouldn't work. And the problem is, this is the reason why they don't bring clients in,
Good
because
point.
it would prove that everything that they've taught is wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's easy to create hypothetical situations and win them.
Yes.
It's easy. It's incredibly easy. I could sit here and have a conversation with myself and pretend to you that it's working. and you go, oh my God, that works. Do you know what I mean? Hypothetical. I've set the
Yeah.
boundaries. Do you know what I mean? I'm setting the parameters. Like, of
Yeah.
course I'm going to win. You bring a client who's never met
The
me,
real
never
world's always
talked to
different.
me. Of course it is. Like, and this is the problem. It's like,
Yeah.
it's nobody is setting anybody up for the unpredictability, and it's the unpredictability that's fucking with people because it's really difficult. It's really difficult to like build up that resilience, to take feedback, to have a good client and a bad client. Like, I always think about it like this as well. Like, you imagine, like, we've all got friends, all right? So we've all got friends, and like we might go to one friend to have a deep and meaningful conversation. We might go to another friend to get proper pissed up and have a proper rave. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Yes.
don't do that anymore. I wish I did, but I can't do that anymore. But my idea is that everybody has different personalities, all right? But what is being taught right now is this one size fits all. So you take this and you go and use that on every client. Now, for me, it's ludicrous to suggest that every client is the same and every client has the same personality traits and every client communicates the same way and thinks the same way and talks the same way. We as designers, we have to remember we're in a service-based industry. You know, their perception is our reality. It's our job to understand what the client needs and how we can best serve them. You know, and then we should be able to work together in a collaborative process to make these things happen. This whole like, don't let the client into the design process, don't let them do this, don't let them do that, puts the client on the outside. And what happens when the client is on the outside is that they get suspicious. They will
Mm-hmm.
start to themselves feel a little
What's
bit
going on?
anxious. Yeah, they'll start to question, like, they haven't got back to me in a few days, like, what's going on? So then what happens is things
Yeah.
like scope creep, micromanaging, hand holding. So the reason that the clients do these things is because the designers have been taught to not let their clients in. So all you have to do, take this little guy here and bring him in, build the process around him, and all of those friction areas will stop. Yes, you have to get good at communicating, you have to set your boundaries, you have to do all these things, but you also have to go through the process of understanding your client and their different personalities. This is an exclusive right now because I've been kind of doing this for a while, subconsciously, but I've actually built like a client aid, which is like a client
Mm-hmm.
personality kind of model, which you send out to your clients at the beginning of a process. And I break clients down into like three different buckets or three different types. And one is an analyzer, the other is an influencer,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is a dreamer. So I could talk about this for another 2 hours, but I'll try and skim it. But essentially,
We'll
like,
save
yeah,
it.
essentially, like, the analyzer is somebody who really likes detail, and they they'll question everything. They'll probably use all their revisions because they're allowed, and like they'll always have questions on your questions. But essentially, do you know what I mean? They're just very driven by data. They analyze stuff, and there's positives and positives and negatives to each of these people. The influencers are the people who
Mm-hmm.
like to stronghold the project. You know, these are the very dominant people. These are the very opinionated people. Now, it's not that they are angry and they don't like you. This is just their way of communicating. All right, so that's another one. And then you've got the dreamer, who is a big thinker. You know, they aspire for all of these things, but they're very difficult to keep on track because they're already over here
Sure.
when you haven't even done these things. And like, again, like, all of these different people
Or
have
on
different.
budget.
Yeah, exactly. So like what we
Got
do,
a few of those.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what we do, like at the beginning of the process, is we understand which category these clients fit into, because then we know how to communicate them with throughout the project. So when you're talking to an analyzer, for example, you're going to need to give them more detail and contextualize and prove that the things you've done are driven by data and driven by story and driven by ideas. You know, the influencers want it a different way. They're quite visually interested. They make quick decisions, but you have to be very decisive and very powerful with like your ideations and all the rest of it. And then
Yeah.
you got the dreamers who probably will like a lot of the stuff you do, but they're very bad at timekeeping. So you have to keep them on a tight schedule and all these things. So basically, like, this is the kind of detail. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really, really important, because I think what happens is right now is there's not enough energy or time spent in that kind of onboarding space that would actually help mitigate the friction points that happen during a creative process. Because people only talk about
Yeah.
the things that go wrong during a creative process. They're not like, oh, my client was really angry to me on our first call. Like, do you know what I mean? That never happens. Do you know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
or if they did,
Yeah.
that's a red flag by itself, and you should say no. So,
The
but
biggest
you know,
flag ever.
yeah, that is. If they're swearing at you straight away, I would just say no to that project.
Get
But
out.
ultimately, for me, like, there has to be this, what I'm kind of coining is this creative mutualism. Do you know what I mean? Like the symbiotic relationship. Like I said, designers need clients, clients need designers. Now, the designers who understand this are the ones who are busy. The ones who do not understand this are the ones that have no work. So it's easy math
Yeah.
for me. Do you know what I mean? Building relationships, building trust, creating social bonds. As humans, this is what has allowed us to thrive. Do you know what I mean? If you're putting people on the back foot and
Yeah.
putting them in survival mode from the get go, you're bound to clash. And that is what we need to stop, I think. And that's where the
Yeah.
conversation needs to
You
change.
know, you bring up a great. I love that idea. We sit here and do brand archetypes for the brand that we're working on. You've just done archetypes for your client type,
Yeah.
and what a bridge you just connected there, because it's almost like what a missing opportunity that is in a lot of our onboarding is to make sure that the client, we understand who they are, because so many times I use the brand archetype thing so the client doesn't push their personal opinion or aesthetic when it comes to that. We have to go back to the brand and what that needs to be to the consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't we doing it with our clients? Like, have a cheat sheet, have the red flags or the ways we can know how to, like you said, avoid putting them on the back burner or avoid making them feel like they're not being taken care of when we know who they are up front. And one more thing I'd love to add to what you're saying, it's not just the client. That's usually to the freelancer or the person that runs their own business. But everything you're saying goes to even just an employee at a
Mm-hmm.
company. The client could be substituted with boss, with team member, with direct report, everybody, right? I mean, what seems to be missing in education is that stuff. The how to deal with people, how to compromise, how to leave a meeting and know what to do, how to take responsibility, how to take revisions and not
Mm-hmm.
take it personally, and all those things that are like, when I first saw your video, the first thing that came to mind, James, was this whole world of everything needs to be done so fast, and the speed of our industry, the speed of things getting done, no longer gives a young creative the 2 to 3 years that we used to get in our first few years of a job to learn all that.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they need to know it in school. They need to know it in education.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
It's
it's,
unfair, but it's the truth.
yeah, it is. It is the truth. I think it is. I mean, like, as you know, and I know you'll speak to many as well. I get the opportunity to speak to a lot of creative people, and it's, like I said, like, talent is not the issue, but that still has to be worked on and nurtured. And, like, the theory is, like, if you're drawing every day or creating logos every day or doing layout every day, you're going to get better. But if you're not talking to people, if you're not, building relationships, you're going to struggle to market, you're going to struggle to sell, you're going to struggle to run a business. So again, like, you're straight back to where the whole problem was with, like, creativity being a hobby. And if you can't sell yourself and make
Yeah.
money and market, like, these soft skills are essential. And, you know, just like any business, do you know what I mean? It's all run on human behavior. You have to understand what makes people tick. You have to understand why people are different. And, like, there'll be no doubt some people who will say, well, you should never change for anybody. And I will tell them right now that there is not one person on this planet who doesn't change for anybody unless there's some sort of crazy dictator narcissist. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody, it's like an
I agree.
inbuilt biological thing that when you're in certain situations, you adapt. Because the best thing that we do as humans is we adapt to situations. We adapt to uncomfortableness. We adapt to this. We adapt to that. That's why when everybody told us to wear masks or stay inside during COVID, yes, we whinged for a little bit, but we eventually did it. We adapted. We got on with it, and then it was normal. It was fucking normal to go out and do this and do that because this is what we do: is we adapt. And I think, like this narrative of people telling designers like don't do this, always do this, never happen, like never drop your prices, never do free work, never do this, never do that. They're like, what they're
Yeah.
doing is they're getting out to the real world without the resilience or the adaptability needed to survive. And when somebody goes, no, they're like, well, now what? I don't know what to do. Somebody said no to me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Have in all the people you talked to, did you see commonalities, differences with the self-taught designer or the traditionally college-educated designer? Because I see a lot of difference. I see strength. I see pros and strengths and weaknesses on both sides. It's just different. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very common thread that ties everybody together, and that is confidence. That is the biggest thing I'm seeing right
Mm-hmm.
now. Is just an unbelievable, and these are some fantastically talented people as well. Like, and I don't
Bro,
mince my words, and I don't,
I agree.
I don't say things just to be nice. Unfortunately, it's the British in me. Do you know what I mean? I'll be brutally honest. But my point is like these people are fantastic, but they they're not only I think more so they're beating themselves up than being beaten up. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? They might have had a few
Yes.
hard knocks along the way, and I'm always very wary of like past experiences and childhood traumas and all these things that could also catalyze issues in later life. So I don't never like to dive too deeply, but the self talk and the self doubt and the lack of confidence is very self inflicted. And I think again, it's the going on this little fucker. It's seeing all these other people, comparing yourself. Why isn't this happening to me? Like, is my work just as good as theirs? Why isn't it happening to me? And vice versa. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, like I think it was. I mean, there's so many differences now with the social media world, but like when we only had access to the people we worked with, like there was the internet, but we're not like dinosaurs, but there was internet. It was dial up, but do you know what I mean? It wasn't that particularly quick, but it's so easy to see the success of other people or the apparent success, and that is bound
Yeah.
to knock us off target. It's bound to, especially if you're not old enough, fat enough, and grey enough to understand that success is a journey, and
It
it
could still
takes
hit you though,
time.
dude. It could
Oh,
still hit
it
you. I
does. Yeah,
mean,
of course it does. Like the ego plays a
yeah,
part. The self doubt jackal, is always there and thereabouts. I just think,
it's
like, I
crazy.
ultimately, I ultimately think that we're all winging it. It's just that certain people who've been in the industry long enough are now winging it with more confidence and more experience. They just know how to navigate it
Mm-hmm.
better because there's
Yeah.
no fucker out
Wherever
there who
you are,
knows
there's
everything.
there's someone ahead of you and there's someone behind you.
Oh, of course there is. Yeah, of course there is, and nobody
You
knows
know,
everything.
and I think we lose sight of that, like you said, because of social media and because of accolades or whatever it might be. And the confidence thing to me just blows me away. I remember meeting at both Crop and Creative South this year some of the most incredible young talents. And the one thing they didn't have was that confidence, right, James? It was like
Mm.
I've talked to them since and even got on Zoom with them. And if whoever you are, if you have any ability to tell a young designer they've got incredible work talent, they are incredibly talented, whatever it might be, you have no idea. How
Mm.
incredible that is to a young designer to hear from someone that just might be a few years older, a few years in more into the career, right? They're just not hearing it. They're just not hearing it.
No, and unfortunately, there's the fact that they're not hearing it, but there's also the other side of it that maybe some people expect to hear it. Do you know what I mean? As well, and I think there's the other side of it,
Yeah,
isn't it? Like
yeah, that's true.
there's the kind of there's the double edged sword, isn't there? Of like, I went, I've been there, and I'm like 20 years in, and I still know fuck all. I actually now know how little I know. That's how little I know right now. That's the only thing I know is how little I know. But this idea of like, you start off in your career and you know nothing, and you experiment, and it's shit, but you hope one day it will get better. Then what happens at about I can only speak for myself, year 5 or 6 becomes like
I
I'm
was just gonna
making
say.
it, I fucking know everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't diss my work. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. The ego pops in. And then as you kind of hit like
Hmm.
year 10, 11, 12, 13, you start to question everything, because suddenly, like, I'm in this forever. Is this what I want to do? Like, is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? And then when you hit year 15 and year 16 and you get to those 20s, you start to really understand how important that journey's been, how those different times in that journey have been so important, and how little you know. And like, it becomes, there was this lovely quote. It's a lovely quote. It was quite an inspiring quote I saw the other day, which is something along the lines of, um, um, anybody, the only people, I can't remember it now, something along the lines of, the only people who will ever dish you online are the people that are doing less than you. So basically, anybody that's doing more
Ooh,
than you will never dish you, because they know how hard it is. They know what you're
yeah.
going through, and they've been
That's
there and they've
what.
done that.
That's so smart to consider all the time. Yeah,
Mm.
everyone could like adapt to that and be like, that's so true, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And I totally fucked up the
That's a
quote,
good
so
one.
I'll text it to you when I actually find the
I
real
got the
one.
meaning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll put it on the title card just so
Please
everybody
do.
sees it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
What are the things that you plan to focus on, implement to make up for what you feel is kind of missing in education, in general?
Oh, I mean, it's such a big, lofty thing, and it's not going to happen overnight. Essentially, this is
Of
also
course.
new. This is also new for me. I've been 20 years. I'm a designer teaching designers. Do you know what I mean? In that kind of world, I've been there, but now I'm moving into this more educational role, and that's going to take me some time to learn, but what I'm basically focused on right now is, I'm going to be dropping loads more content onto YouTube and giving as much as I can, continued work on the socials, continue sharing as much as I can and giving as much away as I can, for free on the socials, just to open up the conversations. And it's always done,
Love it.
it's always been done with a kinder lens. Like, this isn't something that's like brand new to me, that I decided that I was just going to be kind to clients, and I was going to be honest, and I was going to be real. Like, this is something that I've been doing for a decade. Do you know what I mean? Just in a different way. So, like, we've got programs that we're building, and boot camps that we're building, which are going to be focused in and around like design leadership, and focused on processes, and focused on the things like we talked about, like how to onboard, like potential new ways of onboarding to alleviate friction points, and you know build careers without social media, focusing on client experience and relationship building, and obviously the things that I believe I believe there are 6 things that you need within your arsenal to become a design leader within the brand space, brand identity space. And you need to be a good idea generator. You need to be a good brand builder. You need to be a positioning pro. You need to be an experience creator. You need to be a business master. And then finally, you need to be a human leader. Do you know what I mean? So I think, again, like, it's impossible to ever fill all of these buckets, which is the whole point. But you need to be working on all the buckets to become and elevate yourself as a thought leader, as a leader of industry. Um, as you'll know, there's potentially a lot of people just filling one bucket: brand, brand, brand,
Yeah.
brand, visual,
Or
visual,
a little
visual,
bit of
visual,
each.
or a tiny
Hmm.
little bit of each. And I think
Hmm.
you've got to continuously be building these buckets up. So that's what a lot of our content and conversations are going to be about, always focused around these particular six buckets, in which and a funny story, like the reason it came to these six buckets, because I've been doing a lot of research, and like with my team, like Melinda Libsey's on my team, and like we've been doing a lot of positioning work and understanding ourselves over the last 8 months. And like we knew we wanted to do this, but we knew we just didn't want to create just more courses. We wanted to do something different. So we started researching like hospitality. We started researching sports coaching. We started researching the advertising agencies. We started research. I've had conversations with doctors about how they treat patients. So I've been really doing my rounds and understanding how people work with each other. And then you probably would have heard of like the Michelin star restaurant. Do you know what I mean? Have
Of
you heard of
course.
the
Yeah.
yeah, the Michelin star? So the Michelin star came about, and it's like the pinnacle of like the hospitality kind of area. If you get a Michelin star or three Michelin stars, you're at the very top of your game. And I was thinking, like, well, what would it take to become a Michelin star designer? Was what I was thinking. So when you think
Yeah.
of like the Michelin star food, they kind of get. I mean, nobody really knows what they judge it on. To be fair, because it's all quite a secret thing. But it's like the quality of ingredients, the ambience, the service, the cookery, the personality of the chef and the food. There's loads of different things it's kind of potentially based on. So I was thinking, like, well, if I wanted to create the Michelin star designer, like, what would the things that they would have to do? What are the things that they would have to tick? And I believe it's these six key areas, which is just a random story for you and me and the audience to let them know how this
Love it.
idea came about, obviously through research of hospitality. Because the reason I was diving so deep into the hospitality world is that their businesses are so centered around creating great experiences for their clients. That is how they
Yeah.
survive. That is how they
And
survive. And
refer.
yeah, exactly. But it's also like
Hmm.
now, whenever I go to a hotel, I always look at the things that they do different. Like, what have they done to make that a great experience? Like, what do they do?
Same.
Do you know what I mean? So taking all of that and bringing that into the design world to help designers understand how to create these experiences for their clients is, again, like, we brought on my good buddy Thad. He's a fantastic guy, and his family owned a Michelin star restaurant. So we're learning from him about all the meticulous things that they did within their business to create these wonderful experiences, and we're going to infuse that into the design world. We're going to fuck shit up, mate. I promise.
I love it. I love that you brought on the doctor thing because there's a sense of authority there that we listen to with our doctor, right? We don't question most of the time. And I've always said that, like, it's like, how can we be a designer that the client or whoever we're working with has that trust because we've shown the authority, we've shown the knowledge, we've shown the track record, and I love the idea of taking those little hospitality, all those things, sports as well, for the training, for the kind of like sticking to it, the dedication, right? Put those into design education. Why not?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's amazing having all these conversations and talking to my friends who are like ski instructors for the ski instructors and snowboarders, and what they do is they, like, when they're coaching or when they're training, they are taught to add in unpredictability, because weather changes, obstacles, all of these things,
True.
all these unpredictabilities are added because it makes them better in the real world. They
Yeah.
react quicker and they know what to do. So imagine just learning to ski inside with the same kind of temperature, the same weather in a straight line. And that is how you learn. Now go to the top of the mountain and figure
Yeah.
it out. Do you know what I mean? And this is what's happening in the design world. People are teaching people to go straight down. Do you know what I mean? Weather's lovely here, nice and safe, straight down, and then
Yeah.
there you go into the real world, and that's why it's breaking, and they're falling down the mountain, hitting
Yeah.
trees, and getting
It
rained on.
hasn't pivoted. Yeah.
No.
It hasn't pivoted to kind of like what we were saying earlier, where you you used to get those years in your first few years of an experience at a workplace to learn and to grow and to get better. And there weren't, let's say, maybe serious consequences. But what's being asked of them now is they want a semi-junior superstar from day one. And how do we get them more ready? I've seen it every year with our students. It's getting harder and harder to stand out. It's getting harder and harder to land the job. And what they're being asked for is more and more and more in those job recs. You
Yeah,
know?
can you edit video? Can you create social media content? Can you build magazines? Can you do this?
Yes.
And by the way, we'll pay you 20 grand a year for 60 hours a week. Yeah.
Oh, it's not even that, bro. It's
Yeah.
hourly and no commitment to time, no
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah.
And they are asking for what can you bring as far as AI? And it's shocking that they're already asking that in a way where it's like, so it goes to what you were saying. It's kind of lessening the creative's role when a tool is being asked so quickly by the industry.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm even experimenting with it and trying to understand it, I'm now being challenged to be like, well, if my job is to get a young designer ready for the real world, and that's what's being asked for, it's such a challenge because I don't know how to implement that when you're still trying to teach them principles
Yeah.
and drills and boot camp stuff. My class is boot camp. Like that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
And we struggle with that. How do you struggle or how are you challenged against something like that that's so demanding on them, and you're still trying to just work on the core, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a like you say, everything's moving so quickly, and this conversation we have in 2 years' time will be outdated. Do you know what I mean? Like it's moving that quick. Do you know what I mean? So I
You're
think
so
like
right.
I think
Wow.
essentially like we've just got to do what we can in the moments that we have, and I think like
Hmm.
AI right now is essentially only as good as the person putting the information into it. It still has to be trained. It's a great partner. Like I use like as a dyslexic, really idiot. Let's be honest. Like I could draw a bit, but do you know what I mean? Like my reading and my writing is very slow. I have to read or listen to audio books, and writing is very tough for me. But when I'm creating stuff and I'm writing stuff, like I will use ChatGPT to help me iterate and help me iterate quicker and help me. I've trained it to kind
Totally.
of talk a little bit like me, and it is a fantastic tool because it takes a job that used to take me hours full of misspelling down to 20 minutes, half an hour, and it's very much
Yeah.
more refined. And that was great. That's great. But again, like I've had 40 years of brain power to be able to input my ideas into something like this. Now,
Of course.
the problem
Yeah.
is I see is that because especially within the creative, well, for the like I don't want to name any names of particular softwares, but there's certain things that you can just type in and get it to do what you want. You can get it to make you logos, you can get it to make you images, put certain filters on, whatever, la 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 la. Use do this in the style of Aaron Draplin, da 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 da, and it will just, I mean, what the fuck has happened? How that's allowed, I don't even know, but
Yeah.
it's happening. Do you know what I mean? But my point is that those are the people for me that are going to be out of a job. I think those are the people that are
Correct.
going to not survive in the industry. I think the people who focus again on the human, the critical thinking, the problem solving, and actually people who are using their creativity and using their brain and using their creativity not just to wow their clients in a process, but to also wow their clients who they want to get. Like sitting on social media all day pumping out content on Illustrator tutorials because they do well is not going to get you the clients that you want. But you could spend all of that
Yeah.
time and energy, add that up in a monetary value, time, energy spent, and not do that for 2 months, come up with some crazy, wacky idea and send that out to all of the clients that you potentially want to work with. That will get you more work than any of that social media content. So this is, I think people just have to retrain themselves to use their creativity for good. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's this
Yeah.
this like pseudo productivity that Cal Newport talks about, like this whole kind of idea of like, we should be like creating for meaning rather than creating for overwhelm. I think he says so. Like what are the things that we
Ooh,
can
that's great.
do? What are the things that we can do that are worth our while? Do you know what I mean? You can see how social media has affected the creativity of people, and myself to some degree as well. I'm not like immune to this. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like
Same here.
you kind of like people like, well, the artwork that I like doing doesn't gain any traction, so but this stuff does. So I'm going to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's when you're creating for overwhelm and you're creating basically like for this
I love
idea
that.
of like there's almost quite meaningless creativity. There's no real like creative thought or implementation behind it as much as there would be like your own individual piece that you've done from scratch that you keep for yourself. You don't even have to put it on social. So this idea of
Yeah.
meaningful creativity rather than meaningless creativity, I think is something that like we should all start to embrace a little more, because the people that go above and beyond and use their creativity in ways to grab people's attention. Do you know what I mean? Like these are the people that are gonna make it. Like if you're just in that pond doing the same shit as everybody else, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle. And then if you're in that
Yeah.
same pond and getting AI to do all the stuff, like
Oh,
you're in
you're
trouble.
at the bottom now.
Yeah, I mean, like all
Yeah.
this AI talk
That's a
is
great way
like,
to put it.
yeah, getting your AI to do this and do that for you. If you are hearing people say this to you, like there are ways it should be implemented into your iterative process. There are things it can help you speed up, but it should not be creating your logos. It should not be doing this. It should not be doing that. Because what you're effectively doing is making yourself stupider. Do you know what I mean? You need to have that
Yeah.
ability to create. You need to have that. You need a client telling you that you're wrong. You need that because it makes you rethink what you think you know. And it's this whole like repetitive process. If that is lost, then the whole industry's in trouble if that is
Oh,
lost.
mediocre everything, right?
Yeah. And
It's
everything looks the
uh,
same,
I
like it
can't
does on
even
Instagram.
imagine. Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. And we've isn't it weird we've had moments like that even long before AI. I think when
Mm.
like just digital art changed for phone, for watch, for small screens, we were noticing that like everything was just the same. And we're
Yeah.
just getting to that point where like originality and uniqueness is coming back to branding more than ever. And then they
Mm.
hit us with AI. It's like,
Yeah.
no, like
Yeah, exactly. It's like a double
we're just getting
whammy.
back to it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like
Yeah. And like,
the blessing and the curse of our industry is that it moves so quick, but it moves so quick.
true.
Do you know what I mean? And we always have to
And just
evolve,
as,
but
yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to say, as that has to evolve, so do we. And I think you're bringing up so many good points of like, everyone should just stop and kind of consider where they are with something. How can they take this opportunity to step up, even if they're well into their careers? I know we're more focusing on the young getting
Mhm.
into and how do they get a better education and everything, but you never stop learning. And if you stay comfortable and allow the industry to take off without you being part of it, that's where I fear you're going to get lost. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of those people just leave the industry a few years after school because nothing clicked for them.
Mm.
And maybe they left school without the right guidance and that adaptability to know how to handle those storms when they come, that
Yeah,
your stuff you're trying to kind of, put out there.
yeah, and I think let's also be very wary. I mean, we can we've always got to pick a fight with somebody. Like mine is with the online education system and the design influencers. We've all got to fight somebody. And otherwise, what's the point of getting up in the morning if you're not having a
Yeah.
good fight? Do you know what I mean? But it's also like, but
Exactly.
we have to take a little bit of ownership as like, because I can
Totally.
give and you can give and you can give the best advice in the world. You can teach people everything you know, but it's still up to them to execute it. It's still up to them to follow up. It's still up to them to have the discipline and the perseverance and the patience for it to work out. Do you know what I mean? So I understand that
Yeah.
there are so many faults with the system and the way things are being taught and the way people are consuming their knowledge. But there also has to be a little bit of ownership as well. Like there has to be this kind of idea of, we have a choice. We have a choice to see what we want to see. Yes, it's not as easy to see certain things in the earlier stages of your career. I totally get that. But, you know, just kind of understanding like this idea of, and just giving, like you say, giving yourself that time. I think like just saying to yourself, well, if it hasn't happened in a year, I'm going to do something else. There has to be this idea of like, okay, 5 years. Like, do you know what? I'm going to try and freelance the next 5 years, even if I have to work two part-time jobs, build up my freelance on the side. If you want it hard enough, you will find a way. And I know people who have done that. Worked their butt
Yeah.
off, and worked multiple jobs to make their dreams happen. And again, I know people who aren't even on social media, who run great design firms or great individual designers themselves, and they're not even on it and they're making great money. So all these things that people tell us
Yeah.
that we need to do are not true. Do you know what I mean? Yes, content, media, has worked for me. Do you know what I mean? It's worked for others, but it won't work for everybody. But there are certain things that other people are doing that haven't worked for me that does work for them as well. So I think there's this whole like
Yeah. Good
self-reflective
point.
journey, like really understanding that like I do want to do this and I'm going to find a way. And whatever that way is, I'm going to give myself the time to figure it out. Because if you're only giving yourself a year or 2 years or sometimes 6 months, do you know what I mean? And that's the pressure you're putting on yourself. Crikey, like you're going to be in and out of jobs for the rest of your life, unfortunately. And I think that has to come down to a little bit of like trying to get this like a career. It's called a career for a reason. It's supposed to last 40 years, 40, 50 years, depending on by the time we get older, it might be
Yeah.
70 years. Like we're living a lot longer now, do you know what I mean? But,
I can't stop, James. I can't
yeah, and
stop.
neither can I. But there's this understanding of you need to love it and you need to give yourself to it. And yes, your
Yeah.
job shouldn't be the only thing you do, but if you love it enough, you will. I work bust 12-hour days and I'm still energized at the end of it because there's a bigger purpose for me. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's not always easy. I have
Oh
good
yeah.
days and I have bad days. Do you know what I mean? I have days when I make money, I have days when I make fuck all. Do you know what I mean? But I still show up. Do you know what I mean? Still keep
I
going.
lose money.
Yeah, or lose money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because granted, if you're not making anything, you're losing. It's
100%.
like
Yeah.
those days happen.
Yeah. They do often.
What? So what are the next steps? How does it look in the next 6 months for you? And is following you on YouTube or online just the best way to kind of keep up to date with everything you're going to be dropping?
Yeah, I believe so. Instagram, YouTube, and my newsletter, my website, made by James. I'm lucky enough now that I've been Google fooded enough that you can just type in "made by James" and my stupid face comes up now, which is great. But yeah, so yeah, we're dropping our first program on the 1st of September. I'm going to be building a digital design conference, which is going to be another exclusive to this. Is going to be dropping end of
Hey.
January, which is going to be again all focused around um, what we've been talking about and getting my friends and people to open up and talk about their client processes and open the gates a little bit to let people in and see how they work. And yeah, just lots of things. But again, like I know this isn't going to happen overnight, and I know there's so many things I want to do, but I know I can't do them all at once. So slowly, catchy monkey, put good energy out into the world, help as many people as I can, create courses, create the programs, always with this client focus, unpredictability added to it, and just, do you know what? In 20 years' time, when we're on a virtual podcast with our holograms and we're in the same room, which will probably happen in 2 years, not 20 years.
We'll be
See.
sitting there clinking coffee mugs.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how well I've done, because I'll tell you one thing: I won't give up.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of believe what you're doing is such a huge thing. And even if someone doesn't partake in it, I think they're going to be influenced and kind of, impressed with that idea of like, wow, there is this need for the change. There is a need, and this is coming from an educator. You know what I mean? We all struggle with it every year, because it changes so fast and everything. And there's so many other people I think in our industry. I get told all the time, how do I get more involved in mentoring or helping or being a part of an education system or something? Because we have so many great people that want to share, I think, their knowledge and their experience and know how to get rid of those missing links that you're trying to do. So it's not just your fight alone. I think everyone's going to be involved with this, and they'll be very influenced with what you're doing just by watching.
Love that. And hey, mate, if you ever want to collab on anything, you've got my mobile number.
You just call me, dude.
Yeah.
Yes. And dude, if you ever need even like a test market and you want to try it out with my students, more than welcome, man. We'll Skype. I always say Skype. We'll Zoom you in.
You are showing your age now, even though Skype isn't that old. But do you remember? Is that even
Come on, it's
now?
only a few years ago.
Is it?
They're gone. I think
they must have gone. Zoom.
I think they're gone.
Zoomy got them, didn't they? Yeah. Damn Zoomy.
There you go.
Yeah.
But and even if the next time you're in LA, we'll get you there. See, right?
The next one, I use Riverside now as well. Do you know what I mean?
It's too hard, dude, to keep up with all this stuff, man.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But yeah, I will definitely take you up on the old LA thing. I'm going to be back in the States soon enough. I've just got a few things, keeping my head down a little bit. The whole travel thing's been wonderful over the last couple of years, but it takes a lot of time and energy, and obviously with a young baby as well. Like I wanna. He's the most important thing to me. So maybe next year having a little bit of a conference-free zone, so I can build all these things to help the people. But that doesn't stop me going away and coming to see you in LA, just without the pressure of having to talk on stage and cry in front of people. I don't need that anymore in my life.
We were the bookends, buddy.
Yeah, we were. First on, last on. Yeah, I loved it. It's been a pleasure, mate. Absolutely.
That was great, man.
Yeah.
You as well, dude. Thank you so much for everything, man. And we'll keep up with this, man. I mean, as we talk throughout the next few months, whatever, I'd love to recapture this. And anytime you need to put the word out, you name it, I got you on that.
And I'd love to talk more about somebody who's in the education space and, trying to figure out ways in which we can maybe inflict some change internally as well. Like, I don't even know where to. I've got my online audience. I've got that, but I'd love to do more at grassroots level. Do you know what I mean? As well.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do because anytime there's an idea, we could do it in the next session. That the flexibility is there, and that's the one thing I love about teaching is you don't got to wait. You want to try something, give it a shot, see how it works.
I love that. And I'll happily, any ideas that are in my brain, I'm always open to. Like, my knowledge is not mine to own. Do you know what I mean? So if there's anything, maybe we could run some scholarship programs or something, or we'll figure something out. Do you know what I mean? And see if we could get people engaged in it. We'll do something.
Perfect. All right, buddy. Well, I'll let you get back to your early afternoon or late afternoon.
7:20 to 7. So it's almost an evening.
You're in the evening. I keep forgetting, man.
I got two more calls, and then I'm good, and then I'm gonna go and have some dinner. But I appreciate you, pal.
There you
you
go.
got my mobile number. So any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to run by me, any help, and I'll use you as well. We'll help each other,
We're
pal.
down.
All right.
Sounds good, buddy.